Welcome everyone to episode 3 of the Girls in Podcast series. I'm really excited to introduce you to my guest today, who comes from a very interesting sector in the startup world and technology world, especially as it's developing at a rapid pace. I mean, personally, I've been very keen to talk to a guest who works in the digital mental health tech space for a while, so really privileged to have this individual on the show. I think as a startup, as a business, they've really highlighted the urge of sort of mental health care and access, and using technology to develop the access for individuals and information they can always reach, kind of access 24/7. And I suppose with the topic being so prominent on the news, especially in the UK, with the votes happening, it's a great time to get this individual onto the show and hear their ideas, really. Recently, the startup had some great press from contributors like TechCrunch, which must be great for themselves and the team. I think the idea of combining technology with sort of mental health, they do extremely well, and I'm really keen to find out about their journey. So, without further ado, I want to welcome Silja, the founder and CEO of Psyc Apps. How are you, Silja?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you, and honored to be on your show and happy to share the good news and the message.
Yeah, great stuff. No, really, really good to have you on. So yeah, I mean, I was having a look at Psyc Apps and how they work. I mean, it'd be really, really fascinating to find out your journey behind Psyc Apps, how you came to the idea and thought, you know what, I'm going to create a startup around this.
Yeah, so it started out quite unconventionally. I wanted to do my PhD in psychology and do some research, but I didn't want to do it in the usual way because usually you go to your professor and you ask them for a thesis and they give you one that they would like to have researched, and then that's where you do your PhD. At least that's the way in Germany, because I'm German and I just moved to London 3 years ago. So instead I thought I want to do something a bit more modern because psychology is a little bit slow, which is important because there's a lot of responsibility. But I was thinking, what is the ultimate comfort zone? It's the smartphone. So that's where you want to look at habits and treatments. So I pitched the idea to my professor and started writing my PhD thesis. And then over time, when I'd be talking to different people, they would say, oh, that's a great idea. I could have used that half a year ago, or my mom needs something like that right now, or I haven't found anything like that online. So I thought maybe this is an opportunity to do business, and I looked at the marketplace, and it was just the perfect times. Applications like Headspace and Pacifica had paved the way for mental wellness turning into mental health.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And how does a user use Psych Apps, I suppose, and who are the who is it targeted at?
Yeah, so we have had quite a journey in the last year, and it started as an evidence-based application to fight depression, and we could prove that it works by using the application once a week. So the first version that's on the App Store right now and was part of my thesis is a therapeutic tool. It helps psychoeducate people about depression, like what is depression, what can I expect, what happens with my body, what are the outcomes. It helps them to understand that they're not alone. 1 in 5 people are struggling with depression at any given time. So if you look around yourself in the tube, you'll see a lot of these people are maybe living through the same journey and suffering from the same things as me, which takes away a lot of pressure. Then we offered a screening, the Beck's Depression Inventory, where people could screen themselves to get an idea of if they're suffering from a depression, and if so, how severe. And then, without just leaving them with that information, there were a couple of therapeutic tools where people can learn things about sleep hygiene, mindfulness, about medication side effects, eating, exercising. A lot of things that when you hear them, they make sense. Like sleeping is very important for your cognitive skills, but people don't think about them. They don't often link the two. So that with a journal and a checklist and things like that could help people self-manage and self-monitor their depression. And originally we had wanted to link the people using the application with therapists in their vicinity, because it takes people up to 6 weeks to actually go and find help, even though they know they want to. because it's quite confusing out there. Like, what's the difference between psychiatrists and psychologists? Who's nearby me? What do they look like? How much do they cost? And so on and so forth. But we are doing a bit of a pivot right now, which is a little bit of a direction change or a detour, so to speak, and heading towards gamification, artificial intelligence, chatbots, and things like that.
Great, that's really really cool. Sounds exciting. I mean, when I kind of think about, I look at the apps such as Headspace, and you see so much in the news about anxiety, depression, especially among
Yeah.
kind of younger kids as well. And would you say it's easier to approach a subject than say what it was 10 years ago?
Oh, very much so, because it's in the general discourse in society. You read the word anxiety or depression every other day. So even though there are still misconceptions, most people know that depression is quite common and that you're not crazy.
Yeah,
I'm saying crazy with little quotation marks in
yeah,
the air, when you're suffering from a depression or if you have anxiety, and that there's things that you can do by yourself, or it's normal to find help. So we still have ways to go, especially for men. There's still stigma there, but it's a lot better than 10 years ago.
yeah, definitely. I think also it really helps with kind of influencers, kind of in probably the celebrity world, especially for younger kids coming forward and saying, yeah, I've
Yeah,
got depression or anxiety, and they feel like, oh, okay, if they
yeah.
then I can talk about it really. So that's really good. I mean, when I look at, say, for example, if we keep this very time specific, I mean, we've got the general election
hmm
coming up in June. I mean, do you think the government can do more around mental health? It's not something that I've looked into a lot, but I'm sure that's on your radar. What they
Yes,
can do.
yes, yes. Definitely, definitely. There's so much the government can do, and um, I marched against privatization. I can't pronounce the word from the NHS, um, and I think the NHS is the best thing in the world regarding health, but they are underfunded, and the mental health aspect would need a lot more money.
Mm,
Um, there's a lot about education. There's a lot about quick treatment. So you can go to emergency anytime, but that is rather stressful. And you don't always get the help that you need. You still have to go on a waiting list to get actual therapeutic help. So when they say they're doing budget cuts, one of the first things at the moment is mental health, because people don't have quite the grasp. They don't understand that it affects any part of society and economy, and it's in every life, in every relationship, in every family. So there's so much that they can do. And we were actually looking at working together with a couple of CCGs here in London
yeah.
to help use the application as a pathway to find the proper help fastly and smoothly.
Okay, that's really good. And how's that coming along? Is it far into its course? Or?
Well, because of our detour, that's been a bit sidelined. So if I can just explain really quick, because to get people motivated and interested in an application, especially with the quite short attention spans and the need to be entertained, is hard even if you're talking to mentally healthy people.
Yeah,
Now, suffering from a depression, it has impact on motivation, on cognitive skills, on processing, and so on and so forth. So to keep people coming back to an application to help them help themselves, you need something that is really almost has an addictive quality,
yeah,
addictive in a good way.
yeah, of course.
So our application helps, and we could prove that, but it was really hard to keep people doing it. And if you're not doing therapy where your therapist is sitting across of you and talking to you, and there's an interpersonal relationship, then it's easy to say, okay, I'll do it in 5 minutes, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll
Yeah,
do it in a week. So we are trying to go a little bit of a different route and say, okay, what do people do a lot, often, and almost every day? They play games.
yeah.
So how can we use gamification and pattern recognition to get people to use applications that are healthy? So at the moment, we took a little bit a step away from the evidence base, and we're going towards a little bit more commercial, but our end goal is to have a gamified therapeutic tool.
Well, that's really good. I mean, is it going to be developed kind of amongst your team, or is it something very complex, especially with AI? How are you going to approach this?
Yeah, it's very complex. We have had the great luck, I guess you could say, to meet a wonderful development company in the States that are specialized on games. They did big games like movie games and The Walking Dead. They're
Oh, cool.
currently working on Game of Thrones, and they are specialists on gamification. And their CEO has been interested in psychology for quite a while and was looking to do that kind of project. And when we were introduced, it immediately emerged that we're a great fit.
Yeah,
So we have a team set aside just for our project, and they're invested in our company as well, and so it's a beautiful partnership.
it's a really good fit. It's always great when that happens in the startup world, isn't it?
Yes, I know, and we've been up and down talking to different development companies, and people really try to take advantage of startups, and
Yeah,
I just barely escaped a very bad deal, and I was thinking, okay, this is going nowhere, and then serendipity. So I'm very happy with that.
yeah. Once you've got a good developer, hold on to them. Uh,
Yes,
so I suppose
yes.
let's move it on to more about, I suppose, your role in the startup. What's been probably your biggest challenge that can be industry specific to kind of digital mental health or startup challenge specific?
Raising money as a female founder. That has been um, quite a journey, and I've learned a lot. And as a psychologist, you don't necessarily know much about the business world, maybe in theory, but not personal experience and not getting a feel for the flow of negotiations and things like that. So I have made a few mistakes and I have learned a lot. And I think I would start my second company very differently and with a lot more confidence and knowing where I need to go to whom and what time and what do I need to show and these kind of things. So it's been an adventure.
Nice. Yeah, adventure is one word to put it when raising sort of investment. I mean, if you could give anyone who's
Yes.
listening any sort of advice around investment, what would you say? Especially being in London as a startup, what would you say to them?
Well, I would say you need traction, you need numbers and metrics.
Yeah,
That is the easiest thing. Try no matter what to get the best numbers you can get and then go out there and then you don't really have to sell anything because you can prove that what you're doing has an impact and has is promising.
great. Yeah, that's very true. I noticed you're at the I think it's called the Wonder Woman Tech Conference. So it's
Yes, yes, exactly.
yeah, it's really good to notice. I mean, people are recognizing yourself as kind of an influential individual, Celia. So, my question would be, what's kind of fascinated you the most when it comes to the progression of female influencers in startups or in general the business world, really?
Um, well, as a newbie feminist,
Yeah,
I just started about learning and reading about feminism in the last year. Um, I think it's very important to bring diversity to each and every field. And there's a lot of studies that show that women-led companies are more successful, or if they have women in the C-level than companies without. This is for all types of diversity. And I think that a lot of women are very creative, and I'm not talking about art, I'm talking about ideas and growth and seeing society from a different perspective than is the normal male perspective.
yeah,
Um, so I think, by batting my head against a wall until I've made a hole for my company, maybe the women behind me and that are following my direction will have a bit easier to step through. And that's very important to me. And I try to support women wherever I can, and not just lip service, but actually help out and introduce and advise where I can. I mean, I'm not seasoned, but you
yeah.
know, from my own experience.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. I mean, you're lucky to supposed to be in a one of the best startup hubs in the world, in being in central London. I was at an event yesterday,
Yes.
and when like my life is absorbed into startups, and when you come out of the event circle for a while and you jump straight back into it, startups are so exciting, and it makes
Yes.
me think, okay, this is why I'm doing it. There's so many ideas out there. It's just it's
Yeah.
really, really
Yes.
great time to be in London, really.
Yes, exactly. It's quite exciting. I went to Pitch in the Palace about 3 weeks back, and
Cool.
I was just going, oh wow, this is amazing. Oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh boy, this is really amazing.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, it's good to know as well. I think they released some stats on, I think it was a really depressing stat that only 3% of startups actually make it, but they've actually increased that
Yeah,
percentage now,
to
for,
5%.
yeah, so really, really good place.
Yes, yes.
I suppose, I mean, Girls In is all about influencing kind of younger girls to go into, it
Hmm.
doesn't have to be the startup world, it could be technology, but just to kind of pursue their passion and any sort of ideas they have, just trying to unlock as many kind of potential and opportunities as possible while they're young, really. So, if you could give yourself
Yeah.
kind of your younger self any advice, what would it be?
My younger self is definitely stop caring and thinking about what other people think about you. First of all, nobody really cares. Like people people think, especially young women, think that everybody's looking at them and judging them, whereas most people are thinking about themselves, right?
Yeah,
And then second of all, you being a people pleaser will get you nowhere. And I used to be, it's a constant working on oneself, but I think it's really important that if you want to make a difference and if you want to get somewhere, you need to understand who you are and be comfortable with that. And there are many ways to get that, but that should be a goal.
right. Great. Well, I mean, on that note, I think I just want to say thank you so much, Silja, for speaking on the Girls In podcast. It's been really interesting to find out what you guys are doing. Do you have any exciting news or an exciting time we should all wait around for Psych Apps? Is there anything happening in 2017?
Well, in 6 months, our MVP is going live. So
Oh, great.
if you have that long of a patience, then yes, please look out for us.
No, of course, always. So yeah, I wish you all the luck with Psych Apps. You'll definitely be on my radar more, and hopefully everyone that's listening.
Thank you.
It's a great space to be working in, and hats off to you because it's not the easiest audience to kind of reach out to and engage. So yeah, it's
Yes.
very cool what you're doing. So thank you so much. Thanks for listening, everyone, and tune in for the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you and bye.
Bye.